Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya explaining his view of the current legal argument. You saw our reporters Zoleke Kaldasha there as well. And before that, you saw Sibiya's advocate making the argument in court that he should not have been suspended by the SAPS and the National Police Commissioner, General Mpho Matlala. At the centre of all of this are the extraordinary claims from the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Mpho, about interference within the SAPS. And again, at the centre of all of this are the missing dockets from the KwaZulu-Natal Political Killings Task Team. Dr. Mpho Matlala is a senior lecturer in the policing department at UNISA. Dr. Matlala, good afternoon to you. So General Sibiya essentially says the National Commissioner did not remove him properly, and he points to the fact he was only suspended 4 months after he allegedly disobeyed Matlala. Now, I'm no lawyer and I'm no expert on police, but that does seem to be quite a strong argument. I mean, such a long delay before the National Police Commissioner took this action.
Indeed. Good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to the viewers. What the legal team for General Sibiya is arguing is on a point of legality. They are saying we are not contesting your rights under the Constitution, that you are able to, you are empowered to manage and control. What they are saying is, however, in exercising that control and managing, your actions should be lawful. In other words, they should be premised on an existing law or regulations. They are not questioning his capability to fly a plane. They're questioning the fact that he doesn't have a pilot, and therefore he doesn't have a pilot's license, and therefore by law he shouldn't be flying that plane in the first place. In fact, I'm very much surprised that the legal team for General Sibiya did not advance their closing arguments to Section 36 of the Constitution, which talks to reasonableness and justifiable in an open and democratic society. But an important aspect of Section 36 is based on an existing law or law of general application. What the team is arguing is that there is no law of general application that says you can place somebody on leave. Hence the argument on the subsidiaries in terms of the powers that flow from the Constitution.
There are so many different things going on in all of this. And I mean, one of them is who had the power to disband this political killings task team. Now, despite all of the arguments about it, it seems to me that it must be the National Police Commissioner, General Matlala, because he is the National Police Commissioner. The minister, as I understand it, has a sort of supervisory power, but not the actual power. And maybe General Sibiya had the power to disband it, but General Matlala is his boss.
No, absolutely. Disbanding, that is General Matlala's process. Now, there is a level of disingenuity in terms of the modalities or the mechanics of how this was supposed to happen. I'm getting a sense that from General Matlala's camp, they say General Sibiya disobeyed an order in terms of disbanding the political killings task team. But there is no clarity as to whether at which point was it with the mechanics in terms of how to recall the dockets, or in terms of the entirety of the process. And there is also no clarity to say in terms of the submissions made by General Sibiya and another general from Mpho Matlala's office. Was recalling the dockets part of the stages? Were there any machinations that maybe General Sibiya did not follow? But be that as it may, despite that clarity not being in place, the regulations and the disciplinary regulations are very clear. There is no provision that gives effect to or powers to the National Commissioner to place somebody on leave.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, if that's the case, and obviously we'll wait for the judgment and we'll wait for the argument to come from the National Police Commissioner, but if that's the case, it's pretty close to an open and shut issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hence, earlier I alluded to Section 36 of the Constitution, the limitation clause, that a key factor that is important here is that there is no law of general application that the National Commissioner is actually relying on. In other words, he acted ultra vires. It's overreach. It's outside the scope of the law. And it could have been worse because by law, General Sibiya is not compelled to take an unlawful order from his superior because that order was unlawful. There is no legal basis or there is no basis for that kind of order in the law. The order to place you on leave. Leave is usually something that an employee will apply for, or there is agreement between the employee and the employer. In this case, there is no agreement.
Dr. Matlala, there's another issue, and there are lots of different ways to look at this. So obviously the rule of law is what we must all look to, and I accept all of that. As a South African citizen, I look at what's happening in the police. So you've got the Deputy National Police Commissioner saying that he shouldn't have been suspended and making claims against the National Police Commissioner. You've got the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Commissioner making public claims that have led to the police minister being suspended or going on special leave, I suppose is the right phrase. And I have no idea where the truth lies in all of this. That's why we have the Matlala Commission, and that's what the President wanted. Now, it may be unfair for me to say this on the individuals, but if you consider it as the South African Police Service and its top leadership that seems to be in conflict with itself, would it not be wiser to suggest that all of those involved, as unfair as this may be, that all those involved should actually temporarily leave their offices while this is all sorted out?
Well, in as much as that may seem at surface level to be prudent, unfortunately, that's not how the law works. For example, in terms of General Fani Masemola and the provincial commissioners, those people probably, and I speak under correction, probably you can place on special leave because I think the contract of employment, the 5-year fixed term contract is different from that of General Sibiya, who is classified as an employee, and for all intents and purposes, all labor laws and the employment, basic conditions of employment act apply. But what is important though to note is that the sub-senior management has now become highly toxic and extremely disingenuous from where I am standing. And this impacts very negatively on effective decision-making, strategic alignment of the police, problem-solving itself. And when you look at something like that, I doubt if they'll be able to attract talent. I mean, who will want to work for the police top brass, even if they are qualified when the environment is like that? And the current talent that they have, will they ever be able to retain? I really am not sure. And because they are busy trampling and spitting on the brand image of the SAPS. But with regard to removing all parties that are involved, with General Masemola and the provincial commissioner, the minister or the president may decide otherwise. But unfortunately, with General Sibiya, one has to follow the law to the latter in terms of Labor Relations Act, which really governs the disciplinary procedures, because his rights under the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and the Labor Relations Act have been impugned, and his legal team has made a very compelling argument in court to that effect.
Dr. Mpho Matlala, thank you. Senior Police Wing Lecturer at UNISA. I really do appreciate the time on that.